What if I told you the reason you may not be closing business has nothing to do with your closing skills or abilities? What if the deal was already won or lost before you ever asked for the business? Would that surprise any of you? You see, many salespeople totally obsess over the close. They try to memorize scripts. They practice smooth rebuttals. They search for that perfect silver bullet line at the end of a meeting. But the real money, in many cases, it is made or lost in the first 5 to 10 minutes of the meeting. I once watched a salesperson lose a $50,000 opportunity in under 7 minutes. And it wasn't because the solution was wrong or because of any pricing concerns. It was simply because of how he opened the meeting with the prospect. You see, the prospect quietly decided early on that she didn't believe she could do business with him. And from that point forward, nothing else really mattered. And research in psychology supports this as well. The author Malcolm Gladwell stated in his book Blink that people often make subconscious judgments about others within seconds of meeting them. So before the meeting really gets going well, the customer's already asking themselves a few quiet questions about you. Questions like, can I trust this person? Does he know what he's talking about? Does this seem relevant to me? Or do I think I would enjoy working with her long term? Now, based on those early impressions, they begin forming one of two conclusions. One is, yeah, I could do business with her. Or, nah, I don't probably think I can. Now, notice I said can and not will. So that decision can change. But if the answer starts as a big no, you'll spend most of your meeting climbing up. So here's another truth many people miss. Customers usually make an emotional decision first, and logic shows up later to justify that decision. So while we spend all of our time making logical points, in many cases, we're speaking two different languages. So if you want to close more business, stop solely obsessing over the close. Instead, engineer a stronger open and repeat it. So today we're going to break down how to deliver an effective first 5 to 10 minutes of your meeting so that the closing becomes more natural and provides you with more success. Today is all about opening your sales effectively to close more business. Welcome to the Business Moves Blueprint, the podcast for those who want to execute at a higher level. We aren't about just theory nor hype. We are about strategy, execution, and psychology designed to help you make every business move count. I'm Rashid Hanif. Let's get to work. Now, you've probably heard famous movie lines like ABC, always be closing, or that classic line, coffee is for closers. Great movie lines, I guess, but they've also misled an entire generation of salespeople. You see, many new salespeople take always be closing very literally and believe success depends upon finding a magic closing script, as if the right phrase at the end of the meeting will suddenly convince people to buy, even if the entire meeting went poorly. I kid you not, I once had a guy show me a book. He purchased this book called 29 Ways to Close a Sale. 29 ways. And all I could think about was him trying to decide which one of those 29 ways to use at any moment. So does today feel like a number 12 close, or maybe this situation calls more for a 20? Like, wow, that's way too much thinking. The real secret is this. A great close is usually the natural result of a strong open and a well-structured process. Let me give you an example. So several years ago, I went car shopping and I was looking for something fire, as the kids would say. I was probably on some midlife crisis type situation, but I digress. So I visited 3 dealerships that day. Now, at the first 2 dealerships, the salespeople applied way too much pressure on me. And when they tried to close the sale, I already knew what my response was going to be. It was going to be a no for me. Nothing about those cars were fire, first of all, but the total process was poorly delivered. But at the third dealership, I saw a car that practically said, "Come drive me home today." So after going through a more enjoyable process, when he asked if I wanted to purchase this car, my answer was immediate. Absolutely, let's do this. Why? Because like many customers, I already knew my response before the close ever happened. Now, if people are unsure, you'll hear things like, "You know what, I need to think about this a little more," or "I need to talk this over with my spouse," or some similar type of diversion, but usually the emotional decision happened earlier in the process, which brings us back to the key point. The close is rarely the problem, but how you open quite possibly is. Let me show you what a weak opening sounds like to a customer. So you have the salesperson that immediately says, "Well, thanks for meeting with me today. Let me tell you about my company. I've been in business here for 17 years. I've worked with and had success with thousands of clients, just like you. And the main reason why I'm more successful here than, say, XYZ company is really about our performance, which is stellar. Now, I graduated with honors from the prestigious ABC University in 2005, and I've also won many awards here for and on like that. Does that sound familiar to any of you?" I truly hope not, because 5 minutes into the meeting, the customer is thinking, "How does this even relate to me? This is more about you." Now compare that to a stronger opening. For example, "Mr. Johnson, I appreciate you taking time to meet with us today. But before we get into the business side of our meeting, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you and what you're doing with your business. You know, if we do end up working together long term, I think it helps if we get comfortable with one another from the start. So to start off with, Mr. Johnson, I'm really interested in knowing what motivated you to start your company. I mean, it seems to have done really well so far." That simple shift changes the entire tenor of the meeting. The client now understands right from the start that you're meeting for their benefit. Now, along those lines, what I do hear from some people is they feel the need to let their customers know that they are qualified to handle the business. And I get that. I really do. But my experience also tells me that the customer will gather more confidence with how you manage their meeting, not by what you tell them about yourself during it. Now, on another note, here's something that often gets overlooked. It's the sensing experience of the meeting. It could be overlooked, but the aspects of sight, sound, smell, and the environment itself can influence perception more often than we really realize. See, I remember I went into Ulta one day to buy some perfume for my granddaughter. Now, let me be honest. I don't shop at Ulta, well, actually not at all. But when I walked in, the place smelled amazing. It was intoxicating. And I remember saying to the person at the counter, "Wow, it really smells nice in here, don't it?" And she kind of looked at me and smiled and then said, I really hope so." And I think that was her polite Southern way of saying, "Of course it does, you big dummy. But imagine if it didn't. Would that affect sales? I think it would." I mean, senses add and subtract from the total experience. So I'm sure it can influence people to make or miss a purchase like it did for me that day in Ulta. Now, I once was called in as a consultant to support a team of advisors that served high net worth clients, and they heavily promoted their white glove experience. So for informational purposes, we sent a mystery shopper into their office. After his meeting with the team, this shopper provided us with some excellent and valuable feedback on his entire experience. But one comment really jumped out at us. He stated, "Your office will be asking people like me to invest millions, but you served up a cold, nasty cup of coffee in a styrofoam cup with sugar packets and a wooden stir stick. I could have gotten that same experience at the gas station on the corner." Now that's funny, and you may want to overlook that as a small detail, but it really contradicts their entire brand. You see, it may seem insignificant, but if you advertise white glove service and someone's initial experience isn't quite white glove to them, what are their thoughts? The perception of the customer must be valued because their perception is also their reality. So the team made some immediate changes, and they added a high-quality coffee maker, so no more cold, nasty coffee for their people. They added porcelain cups and saucers or something like that, a silver coffee pot, and a real sugar dish with silverware. I mean, the feedback after these adjustments was like night and day. We have to remember the brand experience begins the moment the customer arrives, not halfway through the meeting. It would have been really hard to state to that customer you offer a white glove experience when the customer is clearly experiencing that you do not. So here are a few more reasons salespeople struggle with the opening of their meetings. At times, it's simply about nerves. And at other times, it's about overthinking the process, which is why we try to remove as much thinking as we possibly can from the moment. And then for some, it's simply a lack of preparation. We'll often ask our coaching clients to walk us through their process for meeting with a prospect. And many times, they can't clearly explain it. They stumble and stammer around through the answer, which usually means they're simply winging it. And our thought is this is your livelihood. So why would anybody be winging it? This is why the first 5 to 10 minutes should be clearly defined, rehearsed, and repeated. This period is the customer's first impression, and it heavily influences how the rest of the meeting goes. Repetition, again, is essential because it creates habits, and those habits help build your confidence as a salesperson. It also improves your listening capacity, and it creates a smoother conversational flow, which ultimately leads back to a stronger meeting execution. Now, before you begin the meeting with any customer, try to take a moment to inspect the meeting environment. What does the space look like? Is it clean? Is it professional looking? Are there distractions from noises or odors? Is it cluttered? All this shapes their first impression, so ensure it is not a distraction in your meeting. Now let's talk about the opening itself. Every meeting you have should start the same way. Greet your customer professionally. Ensure to make eye contact, and the handshake is still customary. Guide your customer to their seat that you have planned for them, and offer refreshments if they're available. Now, here's a reality check. Both you and the prospects may be a little nervous at the start. That's human nature, which is why the opening conversation matters so much. And ironically, this is where you need to be at your best. But because of nerves and a lack of preparation, often people perform at their worst. So do the prep and show up ready. To support a stronger conversational flow, we use a simple framework called FORM. So FORM is an acronym that stands for family, occupation, recreation or hobbies, before ever discussing money in your meetings. So what you want to do is start by asking questions in one of those 3 areas before jumping into any business conversation, if possible. Use open-ended questions. So, for example, what do you and your family enjoy doing when you have some free time? What part of your business are you most excited about right now? Hey, can you tell me more about that trip you just took? I mean, it sounds fabulous, and I'd love to hear more about it. Be intentional. Ask questions about matters that are important to them. If they have grandkids, always ask about them. That's usually gold. Start a new business? Hey, what led you to start that business? Big life event? Have them discuss the details of the event. And most importantly, follow up with genuine intrigue and curiosity. Tell me more about that. If they're excited, in a discussion and you just move on from it too quickly, they'll notice that fact. So engage and converse. Try to aim for a 70-30% conversational split where you're the 30%, but they're the 70 and not the other way around. You know, there's this idea that great salespeople should have the gift of gab, whatever that means. But in reality, that could be a weakness. Talking too much at times could mean that you're learning too little. And the customer should sense that. So 70-30, customer 70, you 30. Now, once you've built some rapport, it's time to transition into that business mode. The best way that I know to do that is with a clear, clean agenda. Ideally, a written one that includes the company's name and logo up top, all prospect full names, and the meeting date. You want 3 to 5 discussion bullet points with a brief description of each point. And add time estimates following those points, like 5 minutes for this and 10 minutes for that, etc. Now, the final bullet point should say next steps or something similar to that. Then offer a simple transition statement to move forward in the meeting. So, for example, you could say something like, Mrs. Johnson, I've really enjoyed getting to learn about you and your family today. But you gave me 60 minutes of your time, and I want to ensure I respect that time that you gave me. I took the liberty of putting together a brief agenda. Please take a look and let me know if it's worked for our meeting purposes today. And then stop, place the agenda in front of them, pause, and just observe. This will do 2 important things for you. First, it professionally shifts the meeting into business mode, so everyone involved understands where we are at this point. Secondly, it may give you some insight into how they think and like to communicate. Now, some people will read every detail of the agenda. Then they'll ask a question or offer a comment on it. They will deeply engage into that agenda. This will usually be a detail-oriented personality. Then there are others, and they'll briefly skim over the agenda like they're really reading it, and they'll say something like, hey, looks good to me, Paul, let's get started, even though they haven't fully read any part of that agenda. Now, that's a more big picture, bullet point type personality. Now, this is definitely not an exact science, but it is helpful and can help guide communications with your customer more successfully. In addition, remember, this applies to virtual meetings as well. So your lighting, the background, the audio, all should matter. Any issues like poor sound can distract and reduce their confidence in you, just like a messy office would in person. Different setting, but the same principle applies. I want to thank you for listening today. As we wrap up this episode, here are a few key takeaways that I want you to think about. Be intentional about how you open every meeting. Repetition builds confidence, so practice until it's second nature to you. Your brand is communicated before you ever speak, so make sure it's the right one. And use form to build connection with your customers. And stick to a 70-30 conversation balance, but always remember, you're the 30. Use an agenda to transition professionally into your business with the customer. Remember this, the close doesn't just start at the end of the meeting. It starts the moment you meet the prospect. If you follow this framework, you'll set yourself up for more effective and successful meetings. If you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead and like and subscribe below. And if you want to connect and discuss any item in this episode, reach out. The Business Move Blueprint is here to help you make better decisions as you push for the success you want for yourself. Focus on getting 1% better today. And then you know what? Do the same thing tomorrow. And as my granddaughter always reminds me, peace.